Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Bull. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal! Molineux in all its
magnificence. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Wolves Fancast, part of the 90min Football Network. We're back with another win, ladies and gentlemen. It was a 6-0 blip last week. We don't even have to think about it ever again. We have beaten the Villa. I was going to say yet again. We don't really tend to lose against those lot down the road. So it was all good. And I think we're officially safe from relegation. So to join me to talk about yesterday's result, I've been joined by Luke in sunny Wolverhampton.
How you doing, right?
And I'm being joined by Jafo in sunny South Carolina.
Evening,
I know where I'd rather be.
It's lovely, I'm not going to lie.
We've had a great weekend. We've got the bank holiday. 3 days. Is there anything better than a 3-day weekend and a Wolves win? I mean, there are, but for the sake of
for the sake of this podcast, no.
Exactly.
That's
what I want to hear. Let's talk about the game yesterday, because I think it was a fascinating game, to be honest, and it was a game that I think needed a response after the defeat to Brighton. And going into it, I don't know, we can't. Since Lopetegui's come over, he has built up that confidence and resilience, and going into games thinking we're going to get results and going to get performances. And I don't quite know how I felt about it going into this game, but when I saw the starting lineup and I saw a little bit of reverting to type with Gomez in there, a bit more of that 4-4-2 formation, it did make me feel a bit more positive about it all.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I would have taken a draw yesterday before a ball was kicked. I'd have been happy with a point. Looking at the teams, yeah, so Neves, Lamina, Nunez, and it was okay. How are they going to line up with each other? Is Neto going to be wide? Is Kuna going to be on the other flank? Maybe. Are we going to play 4-2-3-1? It's always a guessing game, isn't it? But I think the key yesterday was Semedo being fit, because he was a bit 50-50, wasn't he? Whether he'd make the game. So I think that was the key. I'm not saying he was man of the match before anybody jumps to any conclusions. But, you know, when I got told that he was injured, it really got the brain ticking, like, well, who's going to play right back if Semedo's missing?
I mean,
I don't even know if Johnny's suspended or not, and I particularly don't care. I don't think he's good enough to play for the club anymore anyway. So yeah, I mean, you know, Toti left back over 8 and Bueno. But again, I feel like we're blessed in that position at the moment, because we've got 3 absolutely superb left backs now, and they're all sort of very, very different in terms of style and what sort of left back they are. I do feel sorry for Aït-Nouri, because I've never really been his biggest fan, and you know, I've even called him Vinagre with an afro previously, because that's what he reminds me of, Vinagre with an afro. But he has come on, and I'm sure he's got a really bright future, but I don't think it looks like it's going to be at Wolves much longer. And then obviously we've got Bueno, who I think is absolutely superb. I think Bueno is going to the top. And then Toti. And since Toti came in, was his debut against Brentford at home last season?
That sounds about...
I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong anyway. But since then, I mean, he's got to have racked up close to 30 appearances for the club now, if not more. I actually don't think I've seen him have a bad game.
No. I was going to say, he's one of my talking points today, and he's according to grand old Wikipedia, he's made 22 appearances for Wolves.
Oh, okay. Not far off then. Not
Yeah.
far off.
But you're right. He doesn't. I can't remember too many absolutely stinkers he's had.
No.
And to be fair, that's saying something over the last 2 years with Wolves, because I can probably cherry pick a game for every player who's had a poor one. But for him, I don't think it helps that he's got how to put it politely, a bit of an unorthodox style when he's on the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say technically he's the best. I mean, if you're looking at that side of the game, then obviously Bueno and Ait Nouri, they're streets ahead, especially Bueno. Technically, what a player. I mean, his delivery into the box, he's got to be the best crosser of the ball at the club. So from the technical side of the game, then yeah, you wouldn't say Toti is up there as the best, but it's football's more about the technical side of the game, isn't it? And I think positionally and the way that he reads the game and his, like I just said, his positioning, obviously physical strength, his physical attributes, I think he's head and shoulders above the other two on that side. So that's that. We've not. I don't think we're in ownership of a left back who is absolutely superb in all different corners of the game. But I think we're blessed with three very, very good left backs, and it's probably our strongest position in the club at this moment in time.
I mean, especially when you consider we've got another very highly regarded left back out on loan with Ryan Giles at the moment.
Yeah.
It's probably, I guess, more similar to Hugo Bueno in terms of style of play. But he's had, 2.5, 3 seasons at championship level, where League One, I think, was that first one where he kind of skyrocketed. But, I mean, he's a cut above championship. And if it wasn't for the emergence of Bueno this season, he'd surely be primed to kind of move up. And I think he's going to be a real victim. Sounds quite harsh for someone who's played about 2 games for Wolves in the senior sides. But, I like at the moment how, you've got Bueno and Gomez, who are 2 almost contrasting styles of play and not quite what they offer, because both of them are solid enough defensively and good enough going forward, and they've both got these slightly unique aspects to their game. But because they vary, it does give us a bit of an option, I think, particularly against Villa, who do have some tall physical players. I can see why he went for Gomez when we needed to. If he needed to squeeze in to have that extra centre half, especially on set pieces, I really understood that selection, and it paid off pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Sorry, go on. I'll let Jafal speak.
Yeah, no, that's all right. He doesn't look uncomfortable there either. I think that's sort of. I know that said he played a little bit of left back when he was at Estoril, but we know the difference between the Portuguese league and the Premier League is a massive gulf. But he doesn't look uncomfortable there, and when you see yesterday, you've got Leon Bailey, who he's a good winger. He's not had the greatest time at Villa, but he can run at defenders. Toti Gomez never looks under pressure when a player's running at him, and that's the key thing. Is like, I think what Luke said is well, that we've got players to service that area in all aspects. So if we play against a team where we need a defensive left back, or we need a team where we need that more wing back style player, we've got both. It's nice to see, and it's actually good, because what we've wanted to see in the past sort of 3 or 4 years is this grasshopper system working. And Toti Gomez is probably one of the standout players who've come out of that sort of feeder club system that we've got over there. Has actually become a player that's important and crucial to the Wolves setup. So it shows that does work, and it probably has a future.
No, I completely agree. And I think, I guess, last point on Gomez before we talk, I guess, about him in game yesterday, is that my biggest fear when I saw him on the starting lineup at left back for the first time, not necessarily yesterday, is he going to look like a centre back playing at left back? And politely, you got Craig Dawson beside, who for years played right back for West Brom, and it just felt like having an extra centre half out there. And I know he's got a level of adaptability in his game, Gomez, which I didn't quite trust until he started playing there, and it is clearly reaping rewards. And he's definitely got the faith of Lopetegui as well. And I think it's kind of quite clear that Lopetegui's made up his mind on a few players, particularly say like Aït-Nouri doesn't seem to be in Lopetegui's good books at the moment. And you're right, it's a real success story with Gomez, and I almost think his development's slightly akin to someone like Max Kilman in terms of that, I guess, slightly slower progression into the first team, and it taking him arguably that bit longer. You know, Gomez isn't that young; he's 24. This isn't so. Yeah, he's older than you think. He played a couple of seasons at Estoril, where he played. I think it was a season or so, and then joined Wolves. Then had a year and a half. I think it was at Zurich, because we recorded him. I'm pretty sure halfway through the season, when we were struggling for players, and he seems to have sort of quietly made his mark. But
I think, just touching on the age of Gomez and obviously Kilman's progression and the age of his progression, you know, I think that's a really good message to any young footballers that are trying to make a living out of the game. Because I think, you know, as fans, we can be guilty, and, you know, even I suppose coaches in the academy system and whatnot can be guilty of writing players off at the age of 18 if they're not sort of playing in the first team or playing in a first team somewhere. You know, we've got a couple of lads, well, Gomez, Toti Gomez, obviously, you know, as an 18-year-old, we wouldn't have been looking at him saying, oh, he's going to play for Wolves. You know, we probably would have rolled him off thinking, well, if he's not in and around the first team by the age of 20, where's his future lie? But, you know, they're showing that the players are sort of developing, you know, a little bit slower. So 22, 23, you know, you can still give it a good shot. Because I watched his interview yesterday and I thought, Jesus Christ, this is mad. Like, he's actually a Premier League footballer. Like, no one can take that away from him because he's comfortable at the level and he's doing well. And it's great to see that sort of like, so 2 seasons ago, he would have been playing for Grasshoppers.
Yeah.
And now he's playing for a team, you know, I've had a great Premier League season, but he could quite easily play for us next season. I don't know, 15 starts, 7 off the bench, whatever, and we could qualify for Europe. So he could be playing European football in 5 years' time. And I bet sort of 5-6 years ago, he never would have thought of that or even dreamt it.
I think I find it fascinating in terms of like player development and getting a run of fixtures, because he hasn't had that for Wolves up until really this season. And, you know, what that does for him developmentally wise and personally, but what it means for his future, as you said, like, he's a Premier League footballer now. He's like, we've seen enough games of him up this level to go, all right, yeah, he's still rough around the edges in certain parts of it. But if Wolves said, you know, he's on the transfer list tomorrow, there would be teams in this league who snap him up.
I mean,
it might not be, you know, like your Arsenal's and Manchester United's, but you're telling me that any of the teams beneath Wolves in the season wouldn't go, that is a player who could improve us. And I think that's sometimes all you can ask for as a
even the clubs coming up, Burnley, Sheffield United, every team in the playoffs would sign him if they could afford him and his wages and whatnot. I think the teams that are going to get relegated, you know, that'd be looking at him. So, you know, And I suppose we've got to take our hat off to the academy, because let's think back 10, 15, 20 years. Imagine it never would have seemed likely that Wolves would have had players that have come through our academy. And I know he joined a little bit later than, you know, he wasn't here when he was 12, 13. But still, players attached to our academy to then go on and play Premier League football. Like when it happened with Lescott and Robbie Keane, it was like, oh my God, we've actually got a player that is half decent that's come through the academy. No disrespect to anyone that's come through the academy, you know, during the 90s and the noughties and all that. But now we seem to be at that stage where we are developing good footballers. Ryan Giles, for example, even if he doesn't make it at Wolves, I mean, we still get 5 or 6 mil for him, I'd imagine.
I think personally, I think we get more than that for him. I think just because you look at his track record and what Championship players go for nowadays, and it's impressive, and I get it's a wider point. But you look particularly at like even like League One, League Two levels. There's a lot of Wolves players who were in the development squads 5 years ago.
Well, what's that lad's name?
Aaron Collins.
Aaron Collins, that's the one.
Yeah.
He's just won League One Player of the Season, hasn't he? Got over 20 goals again. And fantastic story that is.
Yeah, I think Elliot Watt, who played a couple of cup games, has got him the team of the year for his team as well. There's a few, but I was going to say, the thing about what I quite like about Toti Gomez the most, he's a big game player. He's got that passion. He's almost, and I've not quite thought this through, he's the heir apparent to Roman Sace. In terms of someone who wears his heart on his sleeve, you're getting a big performance from him on the big occasions.
Yeah, he's probably safe with the yellow cards, isn't he? I mean, that's the only difference.
We'll teach him that, don't worry. We'll drill those yellow cards into him. But I don't know. I think even for his goal, and obviously he had that one chalked off against Liverpool earlier this season, but he seems to step up at the right moments, and even through a goal, because that was chaos. Wolves we should have had a. Do you think we should have had a penalty?
Yeah, I think if it didn't go in, I think we would have got the penalty.
But I mean, should we have had one even before that?
Well, yeah, because McGinn was all over Dawson.
Yeah, and the ref just went, like you said, oh, let's not do that. Let's not commit the foul that you've already committed. And
I mean, if that's in a wrestling ring, you're not surprised, are you?
Yeah.
It's a side suplex anyway, isn't it?
But this is where refs have got to start doing their job. Like for me, why have you got to put your hands on a man in the penalty box? What have you got? Why have you got to hold on to him physically? It makes no sense unless you're struggling. I always believe that if you're playing football and you have to grab somebody's shirt and hold on to them, it's because you're struggling. Because obviously their movement is too good for you. You shouldn't have to hold them like that.
It's a bit of a mismatch.
And when you are
it's a mismatch, though,
you're holding them like that, the referees need to be stronger and they need to start blowing the whistle and saying, you know what, mate, penalty. Why are your hands on him? You damn idiot.
I can't remember who it was from the Fancast group chat who said if a ref gives that's 8 or 9 penalties a game. It'll be 8 or 9 penalties a game once.
Yeah,
because the players will learn that it's the same like American football where you get you have a penalty which is called holding, because you're not allowed to physically grapple them. It's like, what, just don't. And politely, defence kind of need to adapt for it. And even the second time round, even for goal, corner we actually bloody scored from, there was still absolute carnage. Dawson got taken out. I think Kilman landed on top of him. And Gomez almost just capitalised on the chaos and broke free of his marker and crunching header. I love it. Love a good header from a corner.
And a goal off the bar as well. Off the bar and in.
You can't beat it. We've even had a YouTube comment come in saying what I liked most about it was a paint chipping header yesterday. Yeah. Paint chipping, love it. Big shout out to everyone who's joining us live on YouTube. By the way, make sure you like, share, and subscribe if you've not already. The other thing I quite liked about the goal, and it was, I guess, slightly innocuous, is that where Diego Costa is, because he peels off from everyone. So that if Toti Gomez misses the header, Costa has just snuck in completely unmarked through the chaos. And again, someone yesterday in a derby match, pretty fun player to have in your corner, isn't he?
Ian Half, and the thing is, we saw the different aspects of Diego Costa yesterday. Just the chaos that ensues, like with the Mings incident, was the fact that everything turns into a laugh. So he can just make everyone smile afterwards. And no one gets upset about it. No one gets butthurt about what he does. Everyone goes, it's fair game. We're here to have fun, and we're here to have a athletic challenge, and that's the part of it. It's the fun part of it, and he's an old school footballer, somehow still playing in 2023, and it's a fun to watch. Costa is something that we've never had at Wolves really, and the way he plays the game is just so pure and it's so beautiful, and I love it.
I think it's his experience as well, like the way you described how he peeled off, and it's that experience and that little bit of tactical nous that he's brought to the team has been invaluable for us, because he hasn't got the legs, he's not got the same finishing ability that he once had and whatnot, but what he brings from up there, it's invaluable. And like Jafar mentioned as well, he's a character, and there's not enough characters in the game anymore. So it's quite refreshing to see, to be fair.
I think for Wolves, one of our biggest problems the first half of the season when we were crap is that everyone say, "Oh, we got lots of good technical players," and they're all good at playing football, but none of them really can do the end bit or whatever. And it's because they're all kind of carbon copies of one another. Whereas Diego Costa is such a unique individual, isn't he? You say he's a character, he's something completely different, but it just seems to just motivate those around him, sort of just have that togetherness. I think he's such a fascinating kind of player to watch. I'd hate him if he was the opposition, truly. And the fact that I think Tyrone Mings went home with brown stains in his boxes after the game was quite funny. But you almost know that he seems to know where the lines are. Like, if he's on a football pitch, as Jafo said, everything's fair game. It is, it's mano a mano. But as soon as you kind of go over that line, he's, back to kind of being this joyful self. And, I'm interested to see what the club do with him in the summer, to be honest, because, he obviously signed late doors, in the middle of the season, let's be honest. And it's taken him 6 months to get fit. And he now looks like he's a good enough player on the pitch. But do you give him an extra season?
I don't know. I'm still a bit undecided. I've got no issue with him having an extra season if his game time's limited. I wouldn't really want him starting week in, week out, if I'm being honest. But again, for that experience and that charisma in the changing rooms, yeah, 100%. I'm not on the fence no more. 100%. Give him a 1-year deal. Give him the early cup games, the last 20, 30 minutes here and there. But I just don't want to see him starting week in, week out if he is to get 12 months. And I'm sure he won't anyway. So yeah, man. Give Costa another 12 months. Fully deserves it. Yeah. I'm sold.
I think I'm on board. I'm on board with you, to be honest, Luke, because the thing is, we're in a bit of a crucial stage with the strikers that we do have. Sacha Kalajic has had such a horrendous injury. We have no idea what he's going to be like when he comes back. And Fabio Silva, we haven't got a clue what's going to happen with him, with his whether he comes back, whether he goes back to PSV, whether he leaves permanently. We don't know, because it's all up in the air. So if we go into a season where we've got Sasha's completely crocked still, he's not ready to come back, Fabio has to go out on loan again or leaves, we're down 2 strikers. So if we lose Costa as well, that's 3. We got to get two new strikers in. You ain't going to get somebody with the ability and the nous and the experience that Costa's got for cheap. So to give him 12 months makes sense. It's just, he's obviously happy here. He's enjoying it. It's an easy decision, really. It's a sensible decision as well. So the club really should probably look to keep him on.
I mean, I was going to say my other kind of caveat is that the biggest value he brings to Wolves is his, I was going to say leadership, for want of a better term, his experience.
And I think he's been really good for Kuna and Gomez settling as well in the Brazilian lads. I think, to be fair, I think Costa's been key to those two settling so quickly.
Definitely. And I think one of the biggest issues Wolves had in the off-season last year is that we lost Ruddy and we lost Sace and we replaced them physically in terms of bodies, but not necessarily that big locker, I'm pulling out all the American football terms now. They talk about, a good locker room guy and someone who's good around the place. And that's what John Ruddy was. Sace was obviously really influential. Now, this season, we're going to lose Moutinho, realistically. maybe we lose Neves as well.
In
terms of
I think he's going to go.
We'll see. We'll put a bit of that for another day. But I think at least having someone to have that slight level of continuity, even someone like Craig Dawson, you know, he turned 25?
34, did he?
34. And, you know, I love him to bits. And again, yesterday, fantastic. I loved when he carried the ball into the corner. But, you know, we're going to see a decline on Craig Dawson as well at some point in the next 12 to 18 months as well, probably. So I'd almost keep him on just to make sure we got a level of continuity. And, you know, as we had a really good comment on YouTube regarding this, you know, Costa would be great for Fabio as well in terms of just helping him understand that aspect of his game as well. So
I think Fabio could do with a bit of mentoring on how the Premier League works and this level of football. And Costa's been there, he's done it, he's got the T-shirt. He could be a really good mentor for Fabio. I mean, he's got a fantastic one at the moment in Ruud van Nistelrooy at PSV. You know, they don't really come much better than that. But I still think when he comes back to England, you know, I want to speak it into existence. When he comes back to England, when he comes back to Wolves, he's still going to need that arm around him because, you know, the press over here is completely different, isn't it? It's the £50 million teenage flop that he'll be reading about himself. So to have somebody like Costa who's been around it, been in the headlines, played Champions League games, cup finals, won titles, I think that side of Costa would be invaluable as well for Silva.
Yeah, I think the Costa one's going to be a really interesting one, depending, I guess, how they sort of sway it in the summer. And I can see it either way. They might go, look, he doesn't fit the profile of what we're looking for, but who knows? I think in a way Wolves scored too early, in a way, and I hate that. I almost hate that thing because Wolves played better when we score first because of the type of players, because of the type of style, but. We had a really good question on YouTube saying, was it a deliberate tactic to sit in and try and hit them quickly on the break when we got possession back? Or did Villa just control possession and we were penned in? And when you look at the stats from yesterday's game, I watched the game and thought, you know, I thought we were good value. I thought we worked the ball well when we needed to. We had other chances, not just the goal. You know, Costa had a really solid chance as well. There was I guess miss-hit from Kuna from work with Pedro. But when you kind of look at the stats on it, you know, Villa had a much higher XG than us, reading about what you have. They had more possession, they had more shots, more touches, more passes, you know, less clearances, more corners. You know, Villa kind of dominated a lot of the statistical factors in the game. But I didn't think we played badly. Do you think it was just because we scored that bit early and we did allow ourselves to sit that bit deeper and invite pressure?
I think Villa's problem with that is that there's only one stat that matters, and it's the goals for. And we had 1 and they had 0. So ultimately they lost the game. Nothing else really matters. Who cares about XG? Who cares about passes completed? It's about who puts the ball in the net more than their opponent. Now, yeah, did we play well? I thought we played okay. You know, I thought it was a 6 or 7 out of a 10 performance for us. I definitely feel like there's another gear in us, maybe 2, from what we saw yesterday. Villa, they're on absolutely fantastic form. You know, I know they lost to Man United the game before us, but they're on great form. So they're going to come with a lot of confidence. And with that, after going a goal down and for what they're chasing, because they're chasing Europe at the end of the day, I don't think it comes as much as a surprise that they probably control possession more so than we did. Because, you know,
I think there was a crazy stat before the Man United game for Villa that they'd scored in every game that Emery had since he joined the club. And that's the confidence. You know, he's a world-class manager. He's won trophies everywhere he's gone. You know, he had a rough time at Arsenal, but not many managers have been at Arsenal in the last 10 years and done well. And he's instilled confidence into a Villa side who looked dead and buried in their style of football under Gerrard, that they looked like a team who didn't have any direction. They didn't know where they were going. He's instilled it into them. And that, you see it yesterday, they see the way that they want to be on the front foot and they want to attack the box and they want to put as many people forward as possible. So we need to limit to what they were doing. And their key man is Ollie Watkins. He scores goals and he gets assists. The only way to get Watkins out of the game is to box the middle of the park off. So you bring the centre-backs in tight, you bring the midfielders in tight, and you sit in, you create that box, and you remove any sort of attacking aspect that they got, because at the end of the day, yesterday, the only thing that Watkins did was a half-chance header, which went straight at Jose Sarr, and he is their key man. They will say they're not a one-man team, but Watkins is involved in everything good that they do. So to play the way we did and limit his chances was perfect.
I think with Villa as well, I don't think they will go away from that game and say, yeah, he was 8 out of 10 today. He was 8 out of 10 as well. I think that if you used to rate Villa, honestly, they'd all be 6s and 7s, the same way all the Wolves players probably would have been 6s and 7s. So, did they edge the game? Possibly, but who really cares? We beat them again.
Yeah, true. I think the fact that we scored early did give us that advantage to spend large parts of the game frustrating them. And I think, as Jafo said, in terms of how we set up tactically, we were able to do a job on Watkins between Dawson and Kilman, who I thought were fantastic. And also the midfield as well, in terms of, the work rate. I went Jonathan Ross then. That Lamina and Neves got through. I mean, again, just that little bit of extra presence in midfield really kind of showed for me. And, we probably, I think actually a lot of the team for Wolves, we're 6s and 7s, but, even players like Pedro Neto, who has had a solid last couple of years, seemed to, again, find himself yesterday.
I think he did look a lot better than his previous comeback games, Neto. That press, when he pressed from left to right, absolutely fantastic, and that's what we want to see. Just a bit of fight, because we had 0 of that last week against Brighton. But I mean, you touched on Lamina, some boys. What a player! He's completely he and Gomez as well, when he plays, have completely changed the dynamic of not just our midfield, but I feel like the whole team. I feel with those two, or one of those two in midfield, it just gives us so much more protection when we're defending. Because I think we've kept, how many clean sheets have we kept now? 6 in 8, or the last 6 of the last 8 home games, or something like mad like that. Yeah, we've kept clean sheets.
Most home games in the league, isn't it? 10.
Yeah, I think it's 10. 10 all told. Yeah.
So I think credit to the CDMs as well, because when we think of clean sheets, I think we always automatically sort of go towards goalkeeper and the centre backs. But credit to them CDMs, man, because they have made us a lot harder to break down, and they've been winning the ball back for us a lot quicker as well. I could be completely wrong, but with those two in the team, and since those two have been getting minutes, I would put good money on that we win the ball back a lot quicker and a lot higher up the pitch than what we was before Christmas. And if there's any stat out there who can research that, I'd be quite interested to see, to be fair.
I think you're right, mate. I think the whole midfield is more aggressive and more push forward. And I think the sort of having that single pivot that we have in Lamina, somebody who could do the job of 2 players, essentially, allows. And we saw it again yesterday, that sort of balance came back, where we can get a midfielder to push higher, and we engage John McGinn. He's pushed back 10 yards further than he wants to be.
Yeah.
And if he's playing around his halfway line, there's no danger there. There's no danger for them when they're passing the ball around their back line or through that middle third. There's no danger for our goal. And I think that's the key thing, is that you get the right players for the right positions. And Lamina, I mean, it probably is my pick for player of the season at the moment. Because, like you say, he's changed the whole dynamic. And having somebody who's a specialist, and we haven't had one in the Premier League, and we haven't had a Premier League quality one. We haven't had a player in our side like that since Alfred N'Diaye when we were in the Championship. And to really have someone who can come in there, do that job at a high quality Premier League level, who's got all the experience that he has, is invaluable. And the price that we got him for was an absolute steal. I mean, you're talking below £10 million for someone who can come in and look like he could play in pretty much any club bar the top four in the league. It's incredible business, and it says a lot of good things about what Matt Hobbs and those are doing behind the scenes now, and the way that the club's evolving to look and to move to what more Brighton are doing and clubs like that, and bringing players in who are either really well established within the league or have very good Premier League experience, or people who've got the right, macros and abilities to come in and say, okay, well, they can be a Premier League player. And we've seen that. João Gomez, fantastic. His metrics and macros have been fantastic for the Premier League. And Lamina, fantastic player who, let's not forget, he played for Southampton, he played for Fulham. So he's played in the league before. And the year and two that he's had in France, we've seen his development go on and on and on. And he's come back to the player that he really is and really should be.
Yeah, I've fallen in love with him. I think he's brilliant at what he does, and he's just so dynamic. And in a way, it's easy to get lost and think, oh, he's just this ball-winning midfielder. When he's able to drive on play as well. He does the dirty work, but he's good on the ball as well. He looks forward with his passes. He can, he's happy to break the lines himself as and when he needs to. And I think you're right, Jeffo, that the transfer policy at the moment, I'm quite enjoying, because it's almost like Gomez and Lamina are a really good example for me, that you've got two players, one who's very established, one who's raw with potential. And we're not going to make our money back on Lamina. Realistically, because what is he, 29, 30? I want to say top of my head. No, he's not a young player. I doubt that we will get 29. We're not going to get a large amount of money for him if and when he does go in a couple of years' time. But he is going to be a player who has been able to do the job on day one, has basically been the difference between us getting relegated or promoted, relegated or staying up, and has been that perfect foil to kind of drive through this next era and be a real Lopetegui guy. Whereas João Gomez, it's taken the pressure off him. He hasn't had to work it out on day one. And as I say, you've almost got a nice balance. So hopefully in a year and a half's time, João Gomez is really pushing first team football, starter every week, and Lamina potentially drops off. It almost doesn't matter, because that 8 million is paid for itself in his performances and with the growth of another player as well. So I think I get a really fantastic addition to the squad. Were there any other standouts for you guys yesterday? I realise we've talked about half team, but Sam?
I thought that save off Buendia was top draw. Absolutely top draw. I think we saw it. I feel like he didn't really have too much to do. But then I don't know. No. I just think of a completely different game, because that Watkins header was straight at him. Yeah, the Buendia save was absolutely fantastic. I think did Traore have a shot that was pretty much right down the daisy cutter. His kicking seemed a bit better yesterday. I'll give him that. His decision making seemed a little bit better. But other standouts, I suppose I'd say Neves, but that's just the sort of stock answer, isn't it, for who played half decent for Wolves. I do like how aggressive he seems to be in his pressing now. But what did annoy me, and one thing that I will point out, is I found yesterday when we was pressing, a lot of the time we was pressing just one man. And it was so easy to play through. And I think there was a couple of times Costa was even saying, I think Costa did a press. And he turned around and he said to midfielders, why aren't you pressing with me? Come on, you got to come and press with me. Now you either press in twos or threes, or don't even bother pressing at all, because one man, you play through that and then you've just got a massive hole if nobody else is doing their job and backing up the press. Now that really did annoy me yesterday, because it was just completely pointless. And I don't know if Neves seems to be doing it a lot more just lately. And I'm not singling out Neves because, there's a couple of players who did it at various times of the game. But we've never really seen that sort of aggression from Neves where, how many times have you seen Neves in the last 4 or 5 weeks where he's been closing down the goalkeeper? Never seen that before. Now, I don't know, is he doing that just to prove how much he loves playing for Wolves and how much he'll run, or is it a new tactical style that he's implemented into his own game, or is it what J-Lop's asking him to do?
It's a
I think
tricky
it
one.
was happening. I think it was sort of happening when he was out as well. So, like the ones who came in. So, Joe Gomez, people like that, they were still pressing the goalkeeper. So, the thing is, like, you've got Diego Costa front. So, he's at a certain age. His legs are going, his speed is going. He needs that support. And if Cunha can't get forward all the time, somebody else has got to step up and do the work. And at the end of the day, there's 11 players on that pitch. 10 of them can really help each other out. And when you're on there, you're a family, and that and understanding each other and where each other are and what everyone's pros and cons are and positives and negatives within their game, you can help each other, and that's what they're doing. Neves is helping out with what Costa can't do for 90 minutes because Costa's experience is invaluable in other areas of the pitch. You have to adapt and to conform because that's what football's all about. It's the ideas of total football. We don't play that sort of like total football style, but it's the ideas of that total football is that everyone can play where any position on the pitch, and you help each other out, and it's part of that teamwork and camaraderie that we've really seen come back since J-Lop's been in, because we lost it under Lage, and what we'd had with Nuno and what we have now with Lopetegui is that sort of everyone's going to die for each other because we are a family. We play together and we live together, and everything is for the club and for the and all the superlatives that the club comes out with. But it's all for that and all for the one and the collective, which is fantastic to see because it helps us as fans get behind it. And I think that's why we've seen an upturn in like home results now, because people can see what's happening on the pitch and they can see that the players want to play for that shirt now. And we seem to have lost it, yeah.
I was going to say, it's really interesting, Jafo, because that kind of chimes in really nice with Lopetegui's pre-match comments. Says you can win, you can lose, but the most important thing is that you can back it to addressing them. You can look each other in the eyes and say, you've put it all on, all in the pitch. This is my only demand. They did it. I mean, obviously, that's sort of a throwback to last week against Brighton, but, there seems to be a very much a mentality shift as well in terms of, working a lot harder for one another. And yeah, it sometimes means that Neves gets in more unorthodox positions, and he's done it a few times this season where he seems to almost be almost about attacking midfielder position, closing down play, and I'm not used to it. It looks awkward because he's broken out with that 2-man pivot sort of thing, and in a way, it might, hopefully it's because he's seeing the gap and he's been told to, if you see the space and the, possession's there to be won, you're a good tackler, go get the ball back, rather than, they'll sit and wait and, try and pinch it off their toes 30 yards, your own box. It's an interesting one, I think. And I guess only time will tell whether it's an individual thing or it's a team one, or, as you said, whether they can master this press a little bit more, because as you said, Luke, about 3 or 4 of them yesterday, even with Pedro Neto one, he did it all himself in a way. And again, it's great when you see a player do something like that. But against a really good team, let's say if that's against Man City, 5 seconds later, if that ball hasn't gone out of play, that's pinged back to Man City's right wing, and they've got an overload on, if you're not careful. And I think that's sometimes the difference, and it is sometimes how it works with pressing high at the pitch. But it's at least nice to see, because it shows desire and things like that. But it's just more fun to watch a lot of the time.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I was talking to some bloke in the pub before the game, and we was just saying, like, I feel as a fan base, Wolves fans, they're very much win, lose or draw. as long as you can see that the players put a shift in, you'll get the backing of the fans.
Yeah.
And I think even if we're top of the Prem or bottom of Division 4 or League 2, the fans will still back you if you can come off that pitch and like the manager said, look your teammates in the eye and said, you know what, I gave everything today. And that should be a minimum and a non-negotiable in football at every level anyway. But you get some players and they don't think the same.
Yeah, or sometimes the body language doesn't say it. I know we've got players at the club still who it doesn't always come across that they're trying, quote unquote, but it's at least refreshing to kind of see that extra exertion of efforts, shall we say. I was going to say a couple of last bits from myself before we wrap up the show. Got a nice question from Twitter Corner, a couple of prize giveaway. We'll talk about a charity match, but one of the things that happened in the build-up to yesterday's game, I don't know if either of you two got the email that got floated around on social media. It was sent out by the club, and it was basically regarding bringing photo ID for when you go to the game. Essentially, I won't read the whole thing out, but essentially you won't be able to get your ticket unless you bring photo ID, and you won't be able to enter the ground unless you have it. And I'd seen a couple of different arguments online whether, a lot of people frustrated by it because it might build the queues, the idea of what you can and can't do with your ticket. Things like, people have been selling tickets to away fans and stuff like that. And I was kind of interested to hear your guys' thoughts on it, because for me, it just screams to me that the idea of ticket sharing is a bit of a thing of the past. Now we enter this more digital area. I know Stu's a very big one on being anti-digital tickets and stuff like that because of the logistics of it.
Do you know what? It's all a lot of bullshit, right? And the only reason it's bullshit. And the only reason the club are doing it is because if you can't go to the game, they want to buy the ticket back off you for £3.99 in Wolves cash or whatever they give you to sell it for 40 odd quid. That's the only reason they want to do it. And no one can tell me any different. Because, okay, I'm a season ticket holder. What if I coach football myself? So what if I'm coaching at the same time Wolves are playing and I can't make the game? Does that mean my seat has to stay empty? Any other season ticket holder, what if it's their nephew's christening or their brother's wedding? Does that seat then have to stay empty? Because by what they want to do and implement, then yeah, it means the seat has to stay empty unless you sell it back to the club for a tenner in Wolves credits, so they can sell it to somebody for 40 sheets. It's bullshit. But then at the same time, people that are giving their tickets to away fans, then they deserve everything they get.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds really bad in a way, but I think it's one of those where you always understand the exceptions to it. I know family members, tickets are expensive. You might buy, one adult and one child ticket, and you swap the, which kid has the child ticket each week and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like it's fine. It's fine so long as it doesn't impact me. The sort of mentality to it. And I don't know. I can't justify it. I think the big thing for me, I don't quite know how you get around it, is the idea of either selling it to away fans. I mean, I think if you found selling your ticket to an away fan, that should just be a ban.
Yeah.
If it's for a home game,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't quite buy the whole. And I know it's the whole, it's your ticket to have. You should do what you want with it, because for me, what the long-term thing of that is it causes an increase in ticket prices. Economically, that's what it will do. And it's Thatcherism, to be honest, and it pains me to say it, because if you buy a ticket from the club for 40 quid and you sell it for 50, what do you think the club are going to start doing? They're going to start selling it for 50 themselves.
Well, it'll probably be 50 quid next season anyway. Now we've won.
Yeah,
And they'll send the renewals out this frigging week.
yeah. I was going to say they'll do it afterward. Not a nice win.
Yeah. Me personally, I do think it's just bullshit. Apart from if you are selling them to away fans, then if you get banned, then you deserve it. But yeah, before we move on, we need to mention some guy off Twitter, Molineux Musings, and his agenda against the current water Lopetegui, because it's beyond a joke now. He's fully thrown his toys out the pram because we haven't got Potter. He's splitting the fan base. It needs addressing. Needs addressing, and I'm disappointed. Well, I'm not disappointed because he wasn't due to be on, but it's a shame he's not on to back his case today, because the agenda is getting ridiculous and it needs talking about and he needs calling out on it. So, in a nice way, if you are on Twitter, in a nice way, don't be stupid about it, but Molineux Musings, call him out on his agenda. Call him out on it, because it's getting silly. I've wanted to say it for weeks, but I've been biting my tongue, and I couldn't hold it no more. So I had to have the conversation with him in the WhatsApp group. But yeah, in a nice way, because I know how people get silly on Twitter. In a nice way.
I think
he ain't a bad lad.
No, look, Gully loves the debate.
Yeah, he loves it. I think he's doing it a bit on purpose. I think he's falling into Stu territory with Dyche, and he'll just argue just for the sake of arguing, just because he knows he's going to wind you up.
Even told Rogers the other day. He said Rogers the other day.
Who did?
Gully?
Oh, God, yeah, he did.
He said Rogers, you know the Lopetegui?
When we was talking about elite managers, and who was it? Rogers and... Who else did he say?
Rogers and Potter, wasn't it?
Was it Rogers and Potter?
Yeah, Rogers and Potter.
Rogers and Potter, funeral directors.
I mean, part of me, I get his point that we've not dominated games. We've not had lots of games where we have been clear front runners throughout the game, but also we're the 8th best team since Christmas.
Exactly. And Molineux Musings, I refuse to call him by his real name. This conversation is Molineux Musings. He would prefer us to play pretty little triangles under Potter and finish 17th than play how we're playing under Lopetegui, solid defence, tenacious in midfield, a lot more aggressive, but not as pretty on the eye, but we'd finish 8th. And that's the problem. And he said, okay, he didn't actually say it, but he was alluding to that our manager is an elite and Emery is.
Yes, that's
and Emery, I'll tell you now, Emery has only once has defeated a Lopetegui team.
Really?
Yes, only once, mate, in 7.
There we go. I mean, right. I guess the question is Julian Lopetegui an elite manager?
Yeah.
Now,
look how many leagues he's won, man. Oh my God! And somebody was on Twitter the other day saying that Lopetegui ain't no good and tactically he's terrible. And I showed him the stats from when we played them in the Europa League. Now, I do think if Raul scores a penalty, it's a different game. But if you look at the stats, they absolutely bopped us off the park. I think I know I said stats don't matter earlier, but they got the 1-0, they got the important one, so they can add up the rest now. But I think they completed about 400 passes more than us that game. That is ridiculous. Or maybe about 300 or 400 is ridiculous.
I mean, he was unbeaten as Spain manager. 20 games. Unbeaten. I mean, he fucked it all up by deciding to go to Real Madrid and announcing it a week before the World Cup started, and then only lasted 14 games at Real Madrid. But then you'd argue that he kind of revived his bit of career when he joined Seville and had a couple of really solid seasons with them. I mean, I don't know when Villa signed Emery and we got Lopetegui. And I looked at it as it seems like they're two sides of the same coin in terms of level and stature and what they'll bring to a club.
Yeah,
I think from what I've seen now this season, and we've had probably a bit more exposure to Emery from his time at Arsenal, he's probably a little bit more of a tactician in terms of a lot of making things a lot more intricate. I don't know if that necessarily makes him directly a better manager or not, but this, I think it can be easier to fall into a trap, like with Lopetegui. That we don't play tiki-taka football. We don't have an overriding philosophy with our team at the moment. And I think that's probably what Gully's part of what Gully's point is.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm
the main
defending
part to what his point is, but we can just ignore that.
I was going to say what my thing is.
Of his agenda.
Does your football team need a philosophy? To that degree.
I mean, personally, I think it helps.
I think it helps. I think it helps, but surely, Lopetegui's not a bad tactician. He's shown it multiple times this season in terms of how he changes subs and changes formation, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, surely there are still other things within that setup. So we've got a manager who knows his way around a tactic board, but he also seems to be someone who knows his way around players and knows his way around changing players. And also, the biggest thing for Wolves was a mentality shift.
Mm.
And if half the game's played in your head, then that's, for me, that still plays a certain aspect. And making sure we're getting in the right players that buy into a certain mentality of how we want to play. I don't know. I'm just pulling at straw.
I think you're right though. You're looking in exactly the right area, Rich, because you've got two major things in football. You've got style and pragmatism, and you're right when you're talking about Emery's got style, and Lopetegui's got pragmatism, and that's the way he looks at it in a really pragmatic way. He looks at what he's got and he utilises the tools that he's got at his disposal to the best of his ability. But the thing is, when we're talking about what Lopetegui's done, he's done with one January transfer window. He's turned a team that was on 10 points, dead, buried, gone under lager, up to one that's been eighth best since the World Cup, did we say? I mean, it's a fantastic job. People overlook it, and I'd rather them overlook it, to be honest, because that means that we can go into the summer transfer window with more time, cheaper transfer prices, because you're not inflated. What inflated because it was after the World Cup, and it's inflated because it's January. So now we can look at bringing in players, because at the end of the day, you look at the pitch that yesterday, the people who started, how many people started is ones that Lopetegui had bought in. 2, Cunha and Lamina. That's it. Or Collins, 3. But 3 out of 11. That's still 8 players on the pitch that were here for Lager or for Nuno. And you've got to have this evolution, and it can't happen overnight. So it's like he's going to need another 1-2 transfer windows to actually put the players in there to play the exact style he wants. Because although Nuno was pragmatic as well, but he was pragmatic in a different way. The style of football that we played under Nuno was different. But yeah, like he says, pragmatic like Nuno, but it's a different way. It's a different. We want to be pragmatic with an aggressive style of football. We play 20, 30 yards further at the pitch than we do with Nuno, with Lopetegui, and it's having the players to be able to do that. So it's energy levels, it's about fitness, it's about stamina, it's about technique and ability, more so in those areas as a profile than players who've got good concentration for 90 minutes and can sit in and can hold the line like we do with Nuno. So we have different areas we need to look at. Some of the players are different. Some of the players will work in different systems. But you say that 3 or 4 players who started yesterday will need to be changed because they're not within that system. They don't work, and we're not getting the most out of them. So I think we'll see the most out of Lopetegui and his system and his style, which we've had the summer out of the way. And I think any calls for it to be changed or any calls for any other else to be looked at is prematurely stupid.
Very polite. Very polite.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, polite way
I was
of
gonna
putting
say,
it.
that's a lovely way to end the show. Apart from that, I have a question from the Twitter corner from Molineux Musings.
Of all people.
It was like I set you guys up. Oh, right. Quick fire.
He's done that on purpose, ain't he?
I know. I'm awful. Right. Quick fire. Just off the top of your head, where will finish in the league next season?
9th.
Yeah, I was going to say 9th as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I had 10th in my head. So yeah, we'll go for that. Right. Couple of bits from the Fancast, guys, before we love you and leave you. We are, of course, playing our charity match at the start of June. It's only about 4 weeks away now. So make sure you check out all the links for it. You can donate to Mind via the link in the description below. It should be a great occasion. It's raising money for a great cause as well, with some fantastic other content creators playing in the match. We are also currently doing a giveaway on our Twitter account for your very own Wolves shirts, sort of Hawaiian design from Foco UK. All you have to do is head over to our Twitter page, scroll down, find the tweet. Again, it's in the description. Just follow Foco, follow Wolves, and retweet and like the post itself. And I think we'll be doing the draw in the coming days. Big thanks to everyone who's tuned in tonight to hear us talk about Wolves' win over the Villa. Make sure you keep up to date with all things Wolves Fancast at Wolves Fancast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And shout out to 90 Min, of course, as well. We'll be back next week. I say next week. We'll be back, crikey, Thursday, I want to say, because we're on Saturdays again, aren't we? For Wolves versus Man U. And it feels crazy because there's now only 3 games left, but we are nearly at the finish line. And at least we're hopefully safe for another year, guys. But until next time, it's goodbye from Luke.
See you later.
It's goodbye from Joe.
Arrivederci.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time.